know, it's no small thing to ask these tellers to tell their stories, because as I've noticed in telling my own, if you have to look at your life, and in creating a story, you might come to a certain kind of terms with your life. Maybe even understand something you didn't before, maybe an opportunity to change. Sometimes you discover things that might surprise or even dismay you when you look to try and, you know, get the material to tell your story. So I salute all these tellers who have undertaken this journey today and in so many other ways that they do that. Thank you so much. I'm going to introduce each teller with a quote, and then we'll get right to the telling. My quote that I picked up from Missouri Williams. It's from a piece she did on rabbits. I can't pretend to have any answers to the catastrophe of our interspecies relations. There's just an effort to be made. That's what living is. So that's my quote. And we're going to welcome our first teller. His quote's from Mark Twain. Let us endeavor to live so that when we die, even the undertaker will be sorry. The story title is Friend or Foe. Welcome, Ty Fance.
Thank you. Friend or foe? I came to know fear, and I call him fear. I just like to keep things simple. I was, when I was 12, my friends asked me to join them on our neighborhood football team. Now, I love playing football. I enjoyed it, especially playing with my friends. But I said no, because fear told me to. You see, I enjoyed playing with my friends, but I hated playing with the dudes across the track or from a different neighborhood, because it seemed like every time we start winning, they get mad. They get mad, they start cheating, and then they wanted to fight. Well, at 12, I was this skinny, shy kid with a 13-inch afro. And my fighting skills, well, they weren't that good. The problem was I would bob when I was supposed to weave. And then I would weave when I was supposed to bob. And consequently, instead of avoiding their punches, I caught a lot of them with my face. Well, my friends would counter, right? They see me wavering and hesitating. They go, come on, Ty, man, you good, man, you good. Okay, they weren't wrong. I could catch the ball, and I was really good at tackling. But they would tell you that my best football skill was running. Man, I was quick. I was quick, I had moves, I was quick. Still trying to win me over, they played their ace. They were like, oh, come on, dude, you're not scared, are you? You ain't scared. I'm like, yo, I'm not scared, and I don't care what y'all say. I'm not playing. I'm not playing. So let's just stop talking about it. So I joined the team, and the first time I put on that football uniform, man, whoo, I felt fantastic. I felt empowered, man. Look, and if I'm being honest, I was glad I joined the team. And I was 5'2", 110 pounds, and I got to play outside right linebacker. All right, and my job was to tackle anybody who brought the ball to that part of the field, and I had a good time. Now, I got to tell you something though. One of my friends was Dexter Owens. He was our running back. He was 5'4", 25 pounds heavier, and built like a baby rhino. I kid you not, a baby rhinoceros. This dude had muscles on top of muscles for no particular reason. And was just a beast. And I happen to remember this one practice we had where he ran the ball to my side of the field. And I was getting ready to try and tackle him when fear showed up. He said, hey man, what you doing? I'm about to tackle Dexter. Dude, you better lay your little monkey ass down. Are you crazy? You don't look at this dude. Are you crazy? Say, hey man, I got this. Look at the suit. I was feeling that power, the helmet, the shoulder pad, and I grabbed Fear. First time I grabbed him and I stuffed him in the back of my neck in this small little closet where I put things that I don't want to deal with. And then I lowered my head. He lowered his head. I lowered my shoulder, lowered his boulder-like shoulder. And at that moment, he transformed into a human battering ram. And here I was, this paper-thin door between him and the touchdown. Well, at this point, we both got our head lowered in the shoulders, and I just closed my eyes. And the next thing I heard, boom, we hit our helmets together. Mine just flew off. And then our shoulder pads slammed together, slap. And I proceeded to collapse into Dexter like a human accordion. And at that moment, every muscle, every tendon, every ligament in my upper body compressed and or went into shock. Now I'm dazed, definitely confused, but somehow I managed to reach out with my tiny 12-year-old arms and I wrapped them around one of Dexter's man thighs. And this had no effect on him. He just kept running, dragging me with him. Well, I'm holding on as tight as I could, right? And I was almost losing that grip, and he tripped and fell. Thank God. Well, as I struggled to get up, he just jumped up. Hey, Ty, good tackle, man, good tackle. Yeah, good tackle. Here's your helmet. Thanks, thanks. Well, I got to tell y'all something. Nobody tackled Dexter by themselves before. Nobody. That day I did. And I got to tell you, that was the last time I tried. And so our season was pretty good. We ended up getting into the playoffs, just barely. And we ended up playing our first postseason game against the #1 team in the league, the Jets. These dudes were from across the track in the worst, toughest neighborhood you ever wanted to grow up in, the 5th Ward. When you saw the dudes, they smelled like Budweiser and reefer. That would be weed for you people. And they were scary looking too because they had scars all over their faces, their arms, and on their knuckles. And a lot of them were missing their front teeth. And I was thinking maybe, my love of candy, poor dental hygiene, or maybe some well-placed overhand rights. But we playing these dudes, right? And we end up playing them on their home field, which wasn't in great shape. This field, it had some grass, okay? Mostly dirt. And in the middle of the field was this big mud puddle. Really, it's like large, it's about the size of a pregnant elephant, huge. And Fear showed up. Fear's like, hey, we don't have to stay for this game, man. I said, man, I'm doing this. Stop. Seriously, you don't have to prove. I know. Just let me do this, all right? So I put him back in his little closet. And the game, it was kind of rough. At about the 4th quarter, the Jets were leading 24-21. And even though they were leading, they roughed us up a lot. They would throw us down to the ground real hard. And while we were on the ground, they would step on our hands and our legs with their cleats. It was just, again, Fear showed up. Hey, man, I'm serious, dude. We could just leave right now. Shut up. I am not leaving my team. Go back. Well, it was 9 minutes left in the 4th quarter. The Jets had the ball on our 38-yard line, getting ready to score. They hiked the ball, and the quarterback ran back, faked the handoff to his running back, and then threw a ball to my side of the field in the direction of their best wide receiver, a very tall, muscular kid by the name of Vincent. Now, word was Vincent was expelled from elementary school for stabbing another kid with a fork over a free lunch blueberry muffin. Well, I knew this was no kid to be messing with. But when the ball was in the air, instinct just kicked in, and I raced toward the ball, intercepted it, and then raced off. Now I'm running. Fear shows up. Hey, man, you might want to pick up the pace. I know you're not talking to me right now, but I'm suggesting you might want to pick up the pace. I'm like, what's up? Look behind you. As I looked over my left shoulder, right behind me in angry pursuit was Vincent. And I knew he had one goal in mind: kill me. Well, I found another gear, Jack. I started moving. And I'm running as hard as I can. I ran free for a good 2 seconds, 2 whole seconds before I was hit high and low simultaneously, which flipped me head over heels. Okay. I saw brown dirt, blue sky, then splat, a mud facial. I turn over to my back and attempt to get up. Vincent standing over me, and he spits on me and takes his cleat and stomps me right in the stomach and laughs as he walks off. Again, I struggle to get to my feet. Dexter helps me up. Good catch, Ty. Good catch. Thanks, man. You know where my helmet is? It's got to be around here somewhere. And then I wobbled over to the side of to the sidelines. Well, now we have the ball on their 18-yard line. And we did what anybody with any sense in our situation would do. We gave the ball to Dexter. We unleashed the baby rhino. And when Dexter got the ball, man, he transformed and proceeded to plow into and through Vincent and continued to punish any would-be Jet tackler just for extra measures as he scored a touchdown. Now, everybody went great. There was yelling and screaming on our side, yay! However, the Jet side, not so much. They began to cuss us like we were grown men, call us names, said things about our parents. That wasn't enough. They decided to throw beer bottles and rocks at us. Well, at that time, I stuffed my 13-inch afro into my helmet and I strapped up. And as the Jets bleachers began to empty in our direction, Fear leaned forward, took a look at the fast-moving mob, looked at me, didn't say a damn thing. He didn't have to. We were on the same page. And instantly, my best football skill was on full display. I blasted past our team bus, wasn't going to waste any time there, got out that parking lot and was out into the neighboring neighborhood. As I raced through the 5th Ward, graffitied walls, abandoned cars on cinder blocks, and overgrown vacant lots dotted the landscape. Now, I'm moving at a pretty good clip. However, when this 20-something dude sitting on a dilapidated porch drinking a 40-ounce said, yay, man, what's out? Boom, found another gear. Boy, I flew. Listen, what normally would be a 30-minute walk, I got home in 9 minutes. Now I get home and I'm shaking from the adrenaline. Winded, emotionally drained, but safe. I took off my helmet and I took a big, deep breath. And then I wept uncontrollably for a good 2-3 minutes. And then it tapered off, and then it finally stopped. And I paused and thought to myself, fear. Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Can you hear me, Ty?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, number one, I've never enjoyed football as much as this time when you were telling us about your game. And a couple things were interesting. The power that a uniform gives you.
Yeah.
Think about that in every other situation where people wear a uniform.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then
there's something about being a part of a team, you know, and it really pushed me beyond the fear moment. I was engaged, even though these dudes were terrifying, and it just got to a point where logic / fear made that last decision easy for me, and we never played after that. Even though we won that game, we didn't go back. We just not interested.
well, I'm certainly glad. That's yeah. Well, Ty, that was quite a story to think on for a while. I'm gonna be thinking on it. Thanks so much, Ty, for doing this. Okay, our next teller is has this quote: "If there are foul words in your mouth, what must your mind be like?" She tells Raging on Moore Park. Welcome, Roxanne Reese.
Hi, thank you, Anne. Thank you, everybody. Oh, okay. November 2nd, 2021. It was a brisk and sunny day in Los Angeles, and all was well in my world. I just finished taping an audition at a self-tape studio in Burbank. Since the pandemic, non-A-list actors have been required to tape their own auditions and then submit them via the internet to casting directors and/or producers in order to be considered for a role. I felt really good about my audition. And so I decided to take the long road back home to Sherman Oaks and drive through one of my favorite routes, Moore Park Street, a visibly beautiful area with well-manicured lawns and architectural digest homes and apartment buildings. I was cruising along with my happy self when I noticed to my left, a big garbage truck was trying to safely enter my lane. I slowed down, blew my horn, and motioned to the truck driver that I was letting him in, when all of a sudden, a loud, obnoxious horn startled me. I looked at my rearview mirror. Where did he come from? He wasn't there a minute ago. The driver in back of me was ferociously leaning on his horn. I said to him through my rearview mirror, "I'm trying to let him in," as if he could hear me. The truck driver came out from the street, planted his truck in the middle divider. The driver in back of me was obnoxiously leaning on his horn. It was so annoying that I just sped up and passed the truck driver. Then a-hole driver started tailgating me. Okay, if you hit me, it's gonna be your fault, as if he could hear me. We got to a traffic light at Woodman and Moore Park. Obnoxious driver comes up from behind me, gets into the left turn lane, rolls down his window and says, "Learn how to drive, you B," rhymes with itch. And that's when my sunshiny day got really cloudy, and a mouthful of profanity left, just spewed from my mouth. "Kiss my A, you bleep, bleep, mother, bleep, bleep." And then it was on. He came back to me with some foul words, and I shot back to him with some foul words. We were trying to top each other in an arena in a blaze of profanity. At one point, At one point, foul words ricocheted from my mouth so fast that it would be frightening to Linda Blair in The Exorcist. And then I said, oh, shut up, shut up, shut up, you four-eyed, he wore glasses, pervert, you're ugly. And he said, look in the mirror. And for one minuscule of a second, my higher self wanted to come through and say, you're right. You're right. We're saying ugly words to one another. And why? Why? Are you hurting? But I was in my child mode, like a therapist would say. And I blurted words to him back as a child. And your mother is ugly too. And she birthed an ugly four-eyed degenerate. Believe me, folks, when I tell you, I'm giving you the PG version. The light turned green. Obnoxious driver was making his left turn, but not without parting with his last words. Effing you, you nigger B, rhymes with it. Impulsively, my right hand flew up and I pointed it at him and made the gesture like I was shooting a gun. When I got home, I was shaking uncontrollably. I was mad. I was angry. I wanted to lash out at somebody. I was angry with myself because I had allowed someone to take me out of myself, to say those nasty words. That part of myself that I don't like about myself. That part of myself that I thought I had let go of years ago. But there she was, raging on Moore Park. As I paced through my apartment, I sat with my feelings and shame. I started feeling shame of the words that I had spoken. There's an East Indian saying, whenever one uses foul language, it means that they're not intelligent enough to use other words. And the rage became shame, and the shame took on a new form, fear. I started thinking about that movie that I'd seen called Unhinged, starring Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe's character was angry at the world. His wife had divorced him and took the kids. He had lost his job, his home. He was mad. The female lead in the film was going through her own life's challenges, and they encountered each other on the road when the female lead cut Russell Crowe's character off on the road. When he caught up with her at the light, he rolled down his window and said to her, "You owe me an apology." And the female lead said, "For what?" Russell Crowe's character said, "You cut me off back there." The light turned green. The female lead chucked a finger at him and sped off. Russell Crowe's character wrote down her license plate number, found out where she lived, and started terrorizing her. He ransacked her house when she wasn't there, killed her best lawyer friend, he hated lawyers, and then tried to kidnap her son to kill him. He was enraged. And I thought, suppose obnoxious driver got my license number and is coming after me. I picked up the phone and called my girlfriend, Donna, and told her what had happened. And Donna, being the voice of reason that she is, said, Roxanne, what were you thinking? We're in the middle of a pandemic. People are crazy. They are mad. They have lost loved ones, their homes, their jobs. Whenever I meet someone who's belligerent like that on the road, I let them say what they need to say. And I just keep it moving. You got to be careful. He could have had a gun. I know, Donna. I know. But what's frightening to me is that if I had had a gun, I think I would have shot him. And Donna said, and spend the rest of your life in jail? And for what? Yeah, for what? I hung up the phone with Donna and I started praying. God, please don't let an obnoxious driver come after me. And as I prayed, I felt compassion for myself. Yes, I thought I was happy that day, but I had failed the lesson. And I forgave myself for saying those ugly words to another human being. And then I had compassion for obnoxious driver. There's a saying that I read, everyone you meet is fighting a battle that you know nothing about. Who knows what that driver was going through that day or what he had been through? And yes, we were a mirror for one another, a reflection. And through that encounter, I like to believe that we both learned something, that something inside of us still needed to be healed. I know I did. And I pray that if I ever come in contact with someone who is angry for no reason, transferring their energy to me, I pray that I remember what Michelle Obama said. When they go low, you go high. Yeah. I'll take the high road. I like myself better when I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Roxanne. At the very end, you talked about the energy of anger and fear, how all these emotions are really charged with different kinds of energies, and what happens to us when we're in the grip of something and kind of lose our sense, so to speak, or our compassion. So thank you so much, Roxanne. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, well, we're going to move on to our next teller. We have 6 tellers. This is our third one. His quote is from Mary Wilson of the Supremes. Dare to dream, because dreams do come true. Okay, we're going to hear Dreams from Dale Guy Madison. Here he is.
Thank you, Anne. I've been so excited. I've been writing this story the moment the subject title was released. It brought to mind so many memories. My world has been a stage, and all my experiences are scenes from my life. At 8 years old, I had already started to follow my passion for the stage, and I had been cast as the lead in every school play since the first grade. From the first time I appeared in my first elementary school play, it was called Jimmy and the Sleep Fairies. I was hooked on performing. The play was about this little boy named Jimmy, and I play Jimmy, who refused to go to bed until he's visited by fairies that quote Benjamin Franklin. The quote is, "Early to bed and early to rise makes a young boy healthy, wealthy, and wise." So Jimmy starts going to bed early. I was so impressed, so moved by that story that it became a lifelong passion of mine to go to bed early and to rise early, much to the chagrin of many of my friends who aren't morning people. During the 4th and 5th grades, I would make the morning announcements over the school's PA system. Being the morning announcer always made me feel special. And the teachers always said, Dale's got a great speaking voice. In classes, the teachers always called on me to read aloud. I'll remember Miss Satterfield was my English teacher, and she had me read the I Have a Dream speech by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. shortly after his assassination in 1968. As I read the words that day aloud in the classroom, you could hear a pin drop. It was like all of the classes in the corridor had stopped doing their lesson and they were listening too. It was like everybody had stopped in time. I had no fear because when I spoke, people listened. Then something happened when I reached the 6th grade. My voice changed. It happened right after I was cast as Ebenezer Scrooge in the musical A Christmas Carol. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women are merely players. Like many boys going through puberty, your sex hormones began to set in, and my voice started cracking. So there I was, in this production, giving my best British Cockney accent for the meanest Scrooge this side of the London breweries. However, when it came time for me to sing the songs, my voice would just crack. Mr. Brown, our drama teacher, he finally got so frustrated that he replaced me 2 weeks before the performance date. That was my first taste of the bitter side of the world of entertainment. I should have just packed up and quit the business then. But no, I didn't do that. I just went home and cried like a baby. I wailed and cried like I had been robbed of the Oscar. About a week later, Mr. Brown called and he said that although he had replaced me with a brilliant singer, this kid named Anthony Avery, and I despised him, Anthony couldn't get the lines right. So Mr. Brown came up with a perfect solution. He said to me, Dale, did you see the movie My Fair Lady that came on television the other night? I said, yeah, Mr. Brown, what does that have to do with me? It's a musical, and the star, Rex Harrison, cannot sing. Did you notice? He talked his way through the songs. I think if you're willing to practice talking through your songs like Rex Harrison, we could put you back into play. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. It was like a dream come true. I screamed for joy. But my mother was against it. She was fed up with all this going back and forth and my histrionics drama, crying, one day in, one day out. But I persisted. I wanted the role of Ebenezer Scrooge. I was not going to destroy my streak of lead roles in every play since the 1st grade. And the sense of accomplishment of me doing that play never left me. Afterwards, I felt I could do anything. Now, it didn't help that my older brother was praised by his teachers because he had perfect pitch. When your brother's a straight A student ahead of you, 1 year ahead of you, all the teachers have high expectations for you. My brother was on the school choir and he was a member of the honor society. And I was a good student now. I mean, I had A's and B's in the subjects I liked, like English, history, and especially art, because I could sketch and I was an excellent painter. But when it came to music, I was tone deaf. Or at least that's what the music teacher told me after I auditioned for the school choir and was so subtly reminded of my brother's perfect pitch. That summer of 1969, I made a huge decision. I decided to join church. It was a challenging choice, you see, because my mother grew up in the church. She's from the Deep South. My father, kind of like from Baltimore, a little bit north, he was an atheist. She could spend hours just sitting with her worn, torn Bible in the front window of our living room, flipping through the Bible, reading the stories. The text was always too small for me, and there were just so many words that I just wasn't interested in picking up the Bible. My father always questioned God's existence, and he loved to debate anybody on the subject of the Bible at any length. One of his favorite arguments was, how could Adam and Eve populate the earth alone? Wouldn't that make all of us brothers and sisters? Wouldn't that be incest? Then one day, I came across an illustrated version of the Bible. I discovered it at our local laundromat. They would have these books and magazines there while you're waiting for your laundry to dry. And I was drawn because it was like a bright blue laminated cover, and there were all these exciting photographs and illustrations, Noah's Ark and Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel. And so once I started reading some of those stories, I became fascinated. I became fascinated with the human anatomy from those barely naked art pictures. I studied those anatomies of Cain and Abel fighting. I would go to the library and I would check out different books that had biblical illustrations and drawings. I never missed a showing of The Robe with Richard Burton, 10 Commandments and Ben-Hur with Charlton Heston, Spartacus with Kirk Douglas, Samson and Delilah with Victor Mature. In fact, when these movies would come on, I would use the religious themes of the movie as an excuse to get out of going to church. So, I grew up in Portsmouth, Virginia. And in Portsmouth, Virginia, in our community, there was this church called New Bethel Baptist Church. Tiny little church in Portsmouth, Virginia. The minister was a man by the name of the Reverend James Whitaker, and his wife ran the church choir. I remember my mother, she kept my baby sister home from school one day because Reverend Whitaker planned to visit her. And my mother didn't want to lead the pastor on with any false hope that just because she was a divorced woman, that she needed any special kind of healing. Because you see, there were already rumors going around church and the community about Reverend Whitaker at that time. Anyway, when I told my mother what I had decided, that I wanted to join church and become baptized, she was ecstatic. She immediately tried to convince my brother to join church and become baptized with me at the same time. We're Irish twins, so we're born 10 months apart. So 1 month out of the year, we share the same age. In fact, tomorrow's his birthday. So today we're both 64, but tomorrow he jumps ahead of me to 65. She loved that we did the same things, and she dressed us alike like twins, but we're called Irish twins. Well, he agreed to make her happy, not because he felt any particular way about religion either way. So after we learned that we were going to become baptized, it was like joining church. And we needed to become involved in some activity of the church. Well, because my brother had perfect pitch, he joined the choir. I joined the rolling roster of kids who were appointed to give the welcome announcement to the visitors. I was like, okay, all the world's a stage. All the men and women are merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. I was so proud and excited to be standing in the pulpit in front of the congregation. All eyes on me as I delivered a quote from the Bible and welcomed the new visitors to our little church. Even though I had my speech memorized, I still had my index cards just in case as a reference. The day came, and it was also the same Sunday that the youth choir performed. So my brother was seated behind me in the pulpit of the choir. They sang my grandmother's favorite hymn, Blessed Assurance. Blessed Assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, it always takes me back. The song received a warm reception. People were doing their amens and hand clapping and everything. Then it came my turn. My turn to welcome the visitors. So some deacon introduced me and I marched happily up to the pulpit. It was a little tall for me, but they had a little stool so I could step up and be seen from the pulpit. I'll never forget my first line. My first line was, if this is your first time visiting New Bethel Baptist Church, please stand. I looked across the congregation and there was silence. Nobody stood. In all my years of going to church, I had never seen this. Somebody always visited, except that day. I was not prepared for the option of no visitors being there. I stood there, frozen. I watched people fan their paper fans in the Sunday heat. I saw a few people strain their necks and looked around to see if somebody was going to stand, and it felt like the world just moved in slow motion. It was probably just a few seconds. I finally just blurted out, well, since nobody's here, there's no welcome announcement to give. And I just started walking away from the pulpit. I know you've heard of that expression, walk of shame. It's usually attached to the person who stayed out all night long at some place they shouldn't have, and then somebody sees you remembering that you were wearing the same clothes the night before. But this was way worse. This was way worse. I was wearing a new suit. I had not been out all night long, but the eyes of the world were watching me make that walk of shame to my pew. I had to step down from that stool and leave that pulpit and walk down the center aisle to where my mother was seated in the middle of the church. The Reverend Whitaker quickly rose to the pulpit and he thanked the regular members of the congregation for being there that day. He said something like their continued presence was just as special as a visiting member. It did me no good. My throat was dry. I felt like I was shrinking. I wanted to disappear. My ears were ringing as I sat down next to my mother and she put her arms around me. I knew I wanted to cry, but I couldn't let anybody see me cry. My brother snickered in the car all the way home from church that day. As I recollected the story to share with you today, I called my brother to ask his memories of it. He said he didn't even remember the situation happening, but it did sound like something he'd do. Laugh at me, because that's what my brother loved to do. I would screw up, my brother would laugh. During the course of my life, I would perform on hundreds of stages, numerous film, television roles. I would host events, even interview famous celebrities. But in all my years of being on stage, that was the only time I experienced stage fright, which really was more like post-stage fright, PSFS. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women are merely players. They have their exits, they have their entrances. And one man in his lifetime plays many parts, sometimes with just a bit of stage fright. Because for me, the stage fright wasn't about performing. The fright was if there was no one there to hear me. Thank you.
My goodness, Dale, we're sure getting some interesting perspectives on fright. You know, early on in your story, you mentioned that you were a morning person. So am I. It's always fine to call me early.
Call me early rather than call me late, yes.
You also mentioned the sense of accomplishment you get when you, like when you got those parts. That's also interesting when we can overcome fear in some cases, and that sense of accomplishment. Anyway, again, thank you so much. These perspectives are helpful. They're comforting in a way. So thank you, Dale.
Thank you.
Okay, well, our next teller has a quote from Langston Hughes. Hold fast to your dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird. He tells Down Goes Bird. Welcome, Stan Sellers.
Thank you, Ann. When I was a kid and my parents were going out for the evening, they had a number of choices for places my sisters and I could stay, but primarily relied on two family members. The first and most unpopular for me was my mother's mother, Grandma Mabel. She lived in Northeast Washington, D.C., across from a playground called Turkey Thicket. It had the usual amenities, basketball court, swings, merry-go-round. What it didn't have were kids our ages. I have no idea why. Maybe they just didn't find any appeal in the name Turkey Thicket. When you walked into Grandma's apartment, it smelled like railroad snuff, which she pinched behind her bottom lip, then spit the juice in a can she kept next to the chair she sat in while watching the Lawrence Welk Show, which was not our favorite program. However, there was one thing I enjoyed about going to Grandma's house. When I got really bored, she let me play some music. And she had one album called Whipped Cream and Other Delights by Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. The album cover had a picture of a very voluptuous woman sitting in a mound of whipped cream, licking her fingers. I never played the record. I just stared at the cover. My parents' second choice, and most popular for me, was my dad's sister, Aunt Frances. Aunt Frances was chill. When my cousins were going out, they didn't have to ask. They just yelled upstairs, "Mom, going out!" and left. At my house, when my sisters and I were going out, we had to ask first, say where we were going, who we were going to play with, make sure our parents had their parents' phone number, say what time we were coming back. And if we didn't have answers to all of those questions, we couldn't go. Aunt Frances had 5 children, 2 girls and 3 boys. So there was always somebody to play with. But I hung out with my cousin Harry the most. He was like a big brother to me. Whatever Harry did, I wanted to do. Whatever Harry wore, I wanted to wear. And wherever Harry went, I wanted to go, because being with Harry was always an adventure. But my dad didn't like me playing with Harry because he was 3 years older than me. Now, when you're in your 20s, when you're over 20, hell, when you're a toddler even, that's not such a big deal. But when I was 12, Harry was 15. And for my dad, that was a huge deal. I guess he thought with Harry's 15 years of knowledge of the world, he was going to somehow ruin me. Little did my dad know, Grandma Mabel had already done that with the Herb Alpert album cover. My dad wasn't cool with me hanging out, period. He wasn't even cool with the expression, hanging out. To him, that meant you weren't doing something constructive and therefore could lead to trouble. He could always point to a time in his youth when the expression, idle hands of the devil's workshop, came true. For my dad, his actions were specific. Everything he did had a purpose. Hanging out was vague. One thing he told me not to do with Harry was to get on the Star Truck. Now, in Washington, D.C., during the 60s and early 70s, there were 3 major newspapers. The Washington Post, which was and still is a major paper, delivered in a morning paper 7 days a week. And there was the Daily News, which was an evening paper Monday through Friday, and the Evening Star, which was an evening paper Monday through Saturdays, but with a morning edition on Sundays. Well, Harry delivered the Evening Star. Monday through Friday at about 3:30, actually Monday through Saturday at about 3:30, the driver of the truck, Tracy, who also had a route that he delivered by hopping off and on the truck, he'd drop off a stack of papers in front of Harry's house. Every chance I got, I'd help him fold the papers. We'd stuff them in a canvas shoulder bag, then walk the neighborhood, throwing them up on the front porches. Harry taught me how to throw that paper so it sailed through the air, going end over end and land in the right spot. Man, it was a thing of beauty. When we finished, we'd find Tracy and help him with his route. But instead of hopping off and on the truck like Tracy did, we'd stand in the doorway of the truck to make that throw up to the front porch. Timing was key because Tracy only slowed down, he never stopped. One day, I fell off the truck. We had just finished doing a route when Tracy stopped in the middle of 8th Street Hill to let us off. Me and Harry went out the front door, but as a goof, boys being boys, we went and sat on the back bumper. Tracy saw us, he yelled. Well, Harry stepped down, I didn't. Assuming we both had, Tracy took off. I don't know what happened immediately after that, because the next thing I remember was being at my aunt's house and Harry yelling upstairs, "Ma, Stan fell off the Star Truck." I had a golf ball sized whelp over my right eye. Looking back, probably a concussion. My aunt came down, she wiped off the blood, put a bandage on it, gave me some ice to keep the swelling down. When my dad came to pick me up later, He just looked at me and shook his head. I knew for him, this was confirmation that he was right about all the fears he had about me hanging out with Harry. Only thing he said to me was, "Don't get on that truck again." Well, I guess that fall affected my hearing because that wasn't my last time on the truck. One Saturday night when I was staying over at Harry's, Harry, me, and his friend Ronald Bird, we want to take the bus out to the Evening Star building in Southeast DC. Now the plan was to get on the truck after Tracy loaded up with Sunday papers. We drive around, drop off stacks of papers for the different routes, then help Harry and Tracy deliver their routes from the truck. Now at the time, Southeast DC has some of the roughest neighborhoods in the district. Where we grew up in Northwest DC, worst thing that happened to somebody after midnight was getting bit by a dog. And Southeast DC people were doing the biting. And the Star building was in one of those neighborhoods. We left Harry's house about midnight. "Ma, we leaving." No, we didn't tell anybody we were leaving. We left out. It was going to take 3 buses to get us even close to the Star building, arriving around 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, when the bus let us off, we still had to walk about 2 or 3 blocks. Well, we're walking down this one street, we see these 2 guys walking towards us. Well, I didn't think anything of it. Neither one of us thought anything of it. We had the numbers. There was 3 of us, 2 of them. But it was Southeast DC at 2 o'clock in the morning. When they got about 5 feet in front of us, we all heard one of them say, "You ready?" And the other one said, "Yeah." And that's when it went down. I got smacked across the face, kicked in the chest, flew back onto a parked car. I see Bird get hit, smack, kick. He goes down. Then the dudes ran. They didn't take our shoes, our money, anything. They just jumped us and ran. But I don't see Harry. A couple seconds later, he pops up from a parked car. That night, I wished I had done what Harry had did, because he said when he heard "You ready?" he took off running. My dad didn't find out what happened to us that night. If he had, the beating from him would have been a lot worse. I used to get mad at him for not letting me have my fun, not letting me be free. But even at the age of 12, I knew what my dad was trying to do. He was trying to keep me safe. The world I was growing up in was a lot different than the world he grew up in. My world looked a lot dangerous. Lot more dangerous. Yeah. He was doing all he could to slow me down. But I wasn't going to let his fear become mine, because every chance I got, I kept getting on that truck and kept hanging out with Harry. And it wasn't until I had kids that I really got what he was trying to do, because my kids' world obviously looked a lot more dangerous than mine did. There were places I didn't want them to go and kids I didn't want them to associate with. And the first time my son told me he was going to hang out was the last time. Because I had so many questions, he decided not to go. In 1979, I moved to LA. I was 20 years old. I guess my dad had gotten over whatever fears he had about what could happen to me in the world, because he bought my bus ticket. 2 years earlier, he bought Harry's. In 2001, my grandmother passed away. I have no idea what happened to that album cover. In 2013, Aunt Frances passed away, and in 2015, my dad passed away. 10 years ago, Harry moved to Costa Rica. I didn't follow him. I thought about it. I figured if I had, boy, that would have been some kind of adventure. It would have been like getting on that truck all over again.
Thank you, Stan. Boy, the places our lives take us. Oh,
Something, ain't it?
and how it comes around again. You were doing just what your dad did. Oh, hanging out. Oh, it's just, thank you for being part of this, Stan. I so appreciate it.
Thank you, Anna. Always a pleasure.
We're gonna go on to the next quote. It's from James Baldwin. "For while the tale of how we suffer and how we are delighted and how we may triumph is never new, It must always be heard. There isn't any other tale to tell. It's the only light we've got in all this darkness. Thanks for reminding us of that quote. This gentleman tells, tapping your troubles away. Welcome, Mike Lambert.
Thank you, Anne. And thank you, Aaron, for driving the Zoom bus. And thank you, everybody, for being here. It's a great Sunday. I love Sunday because I can rest. I've worked a lot in my life. I got my first real job when I was about 5 years old. I was my mother's therapist. Oh yes, I had a dream and I made it happen. Well, actually it was her dream, but that made it my dream too, because that's how we rolled. If mom was happy, I was happy. If mom was worried, I was worried. If mom was angry at my dad, which was all of the time, or at my older sister Heidi, which was all of the time, or Richard Nixon or Anita Bryant or the San Francisco Giants, well then so was I. Today, they call that being codependent, but back then, we called it being a good boy. And I was very good. So yeah, the work didn't pay well, but it was very steady. Mom wasn't an easy client, headstrong, resistant, very much, she seemed to be very much committed to her own misery, and it was hard to break her out of that. But she did have her joyful moments. In some of our sessions, she would tell me how as a kid during the Depression, she had taken tap dancing lessons. And she could still crank out a pretty decent 3/4 time step, which she loved to do at parties, but only after 3 cocktails. 3 vodka gimlets, and my shy mom became a regular Ann Miller. But 3 vodka gimlets was the limit, because a 4th, if we were at a party and she had 4, we would always have to pull over on the way home from the party so that she could lie down on the curb in front of a stranger's house for a little while and have a little bit of a binge and purge action. But it wasn't all bleak. It wasn't all bleak, my formative years. You know, they say God does for us what we cannot do for ourselves. And I think there's something to that. And for us, God showed up in the form of the Los Angeles Civic Light Opera Association. The Civic Light Opera produced 4 big, and I mean big, big musicals in downtown LA every spring and summer. First at the LA Philharmonic Hall that was on Pershing Square, and then later at the Music Center up on Bunker Hill. Each show would run 8 weeks. It'd go from April to like August, September. And mom had season tickets to every single one of these shows. She had 3 tickets in the front row. One was for mom, one was for her childhood friend and tap dancing classmate from many years before, Martha Jane, and the 3rd ticket was mine. So 4 times a year, mom and Aunt Martha and I would, they would come by Berkeley Hall School and spring me out early, and they would spirit me down to the Music Center, Mecca for the performing arts in Los Angeles, and we would have lunch at the Curtain Call restaurant, and then go upstairs and take our seats, our beautifully upholstered crimson red seats, front row seats, in what felt like the most sacred, welcoming, healing spot on the entire planet. The very air in that theater smelled different, cool, sweet. It would just wrap its arms around you. I wonder if home is supposed to feel like that. I can't imagine it. But the shows I saw, Hello Dolly with Carol Channing, Maine with Angela Lansbury, Cabaret, Fiddler, Man of La Mancha, it's almost embarrassing. Well, one year, the Civic Light Opera season opened in April with the national touring company of the hit Broadway musical, No, No, Nanette. The production had been a huge smash in New York the year before, starring 1930s film hoofer Ruby Keeler. If you don't know who she is, and there's no reason why you should, get on YouTube and look her up. Just do Ruby Keeler 42nd Street and you'll see. Anyway, at this point, she was in her 60s and still tapping up a storm. And in the touring company, her role was being played, the one that we saw, her role was being played by June Allison, another iconic American movie star and future spokesperson for Depends undergarments. The score of No No Nanette had two, yes, she was. The score of No No Nanette had two hit songs among many beautiful numbers, but two songs that were permanently embedded in the American psyche. Tea for Two and I Want to Be Happy. So the lyric to I Want to Be Happy, it goes like this. I want to be happy, but I won't be happy till I make you happy too. Oh man, it was more than an American classic. It was a theme song for codependent people everywhere. So there we were in our front seats, watching the show, song after song, dance after dance, and well, we were just transported. I certainly was. When Act One ended, I could barely breathe. I sat there in a happy trance, but Mom and Martha jumped right up to their feet and scurried past me because they wanted to get to the bar to order vodka gimlets, which was a sacred tradition for them at intermission. Mom and Martha Jane loved intermission, almost as much as the show itself, sometimes more. And they always made sure to be first in line at the bar because then there was no line. And if they timed it just right, they could order a second round before they went back to our seats. I was a Christian Scientist, very, very devout, and I really didn't approve of drinking, but I didn't care. 2 drinks was well within Mom's limit, so I knew we wouldn't have to pull over on the way home, and Mom truly seemed to enjoy it. What I didn't realize, and what was really rare, was that No No Nanette was not only a really great show, it was a really long show. And it had, instead of the normal 2 acts, it had 3 acts long, and that meant 2 intermissions. Mom and Martha Jane were thrilled. Couldn't wait for a second visit to the bar. But this time they were slower getting there and they had to wait in line. And they barely started their first round when those chimes started sounding to get back in our seats. And I was panicked because I thought we would miss the act or miss the whole rest of the show. I was like, come on, Mom, Act 3 is starting. And that's your 3rd gimlet. It was her 3rd. 3's the limit. She and Martha Jane just stood there and resolutely ordered another round. I was terrified, not only about missing Act 3, but what the ride home would be like. The chimes had stopped chiming at this point. Mom, we're gonna miss the show. The hell we will, she said. She sounded like Elaine Stritch in that moment. And with that, she and Martha Jane opened their purses and carefully balanced their drinks inside them, closed them, and we went in. Mom and Martha walked confidently past the watchful eyes of the music center ushers, not 1, but 2 ushers, like mules crossing the Mexican border. I was sure we'd get caught and thrown out, but by some miracle, we made it to our seats. I just prayed for the lights to dim, and they did. And the music came up, and out came the vodka gimlets. And it wasn't just the Amundsen Theater anymore. It was a speakeasy, thanks to Mom and Martha Jane. So Act 3 opened, and it started with a reprise of that song, that codependent anthem, I Want to Be Happy. And it was so, so beautiful. It started slow and quiet with Dennis Day playing the part of Uncle Jimmy, and he's singing it to young Dana Swenson, who's playing the ingenue role of Nanette. And then when they finish, the lights turn blue and cool, and the entire stage was bathed in this soft moonlight effect. And a battalion of chorus boys, dozens of them, saunter on stage, strumming ukuleles, each one strumming a ukulele. And they're serenading Miss Swenson with that sweet, lilting, lovely, gorgeous song. I want to be happy. Oh my God, it was incredible. Now, if the song had ended there, it would have been just brilliant and more than enough, but it didn't. It kept going. And then the chorus boys finally finished and they stepped back. I swear there must have been 30 or 40 of them. And June Allison comes out solo with her perfectly bobbed blonde hair and that wholesome smile in a peach-colored blouse and a matching pleated crepe skirt that flowed like a light summer breeze on the Atlantic City boardwalk. And as a warm pink spotlight bathed her in soft-hued glory, she broke into a soft shoe right up in front of us on the very lip of that stage, not more than 5 feet from us. An amazing soft shoe solo that you hoped would never end. And it almost never did. It was long and it was glorious. I had never seen Mom and Martha Jane enjoy a show so much. Even Cabaret, which was Mom's all-time favorite, and therefore mine. So June Allison is tapping away. And at one point, she's right in front of Mom and Martha and me. And Mom and Martha are lit up practically like Christmas trees. Not because of the vodka. Well, not just because of the vodka, but the dancing. I think it was really primal for them. I think it was a childhood connection of some kind. Who knows? I can't say, but it was profound. And at a certain moment, this was the amazing thing. At a certain moment, they made eye contact with June Allison. June Allison saw my Mom and Martha Jane in that dark, cavernous theater. She really saw them. You could see it. You could feel it. And it changed everything. It changed June Allison right there in front of us. I mean, she was fine before then, but it was a Wednesday matinee and she probably was saving herself for that evening's performance. I don't know. But when she saw my Mom and Martha Jane, there was connection and her face lit up too, almost teary-eyed. It was like they had seen each other and understood each other with a kind of wordless understanding. And she was happy. She really was. And the whole rest of the dance was just electric. You know, for June Allison, I think back sometimes and I wonder, I mean, for that experience, what was it? What made it happen? Was it the talent? Was it the dancing? Was it the physical proximity? Was it the vodka? And I really don't know. All I know is that in that moment, that song, every single word of that song literally came to life in one big burst of codependent glory, unapologetic codependent glory. I want to be happy, but I won't be happy till I make you happy too. Mom wanted to be happy, but she couldn't be happy till she made June Allison happy too. And they were. And for one glorious day, my work was done.
I love that. Can you hear me, Mike? I love that you said one unapologetic moment of glory. Unapologetic. Because in a way, I've always believed we're all codependent. Hey, you know, I'm not in this alone. Oh, Mike, thank you. Thank you. I've never enjoyed light opera so much. Our last teller is coming up. I'm going to tell you something. He gave me a quote that was really a philosophy taught to him by his paternal grandfather. After learning that the octogenarian paternal grandfather had dug up a stump in his yard, this next gentleman chastised his gramps for being too old for that kind of work. Grandpa Ewing responded, "Punk, I won't be old till the day after I die." Here he is, Rev Kev Ewing.
Thank you. I've known for most of my life that one of my calls, one of my purposes, one of the reasons I've been placed on this earth is to make it possible for several white people to say, you know, one of my good friends is Black. Have you met Kevin? They call him Rev Kev. Now, I know all the Black people and down white folks hear me say that and you go, what in the hell is this nut talking about? And there's probably a few of you going, yeah, he's my friend, Kev. He's a good guy. That's okay. I love all of you. But it's true. That's who I am. And I've known it for most of my life. But I wasn't sure what to say about it. A few years ago, I was working with some dudes in the neighborhood. All of them had histories with the criminal justice system, and most lived straddling the lines of legality. They weren't physically hurting people anymore, but you might not want to dig too deep into where or how they got that new Xbox or big screen TV we were playing with in the living room, if you know what I mean. All of them also recognized that they had messed up and were determined to show their sons and sometimes grandsons better options. So we were tossing around ideas of programs we could start to help the community, but money to pay for it was always an issue. So they looked at me. Can't you do something, Rev Kev? You're good at getting white folks to give up money. And then another one looked at me and said, yeah, you're like a white people whisperer. What? A white people whisperer? Wow, that struck a nerve. And I wasn't sure what to say about it. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. Now, I don't know if you know much about St. Louis, but it straddles the Mason-Dixon line. It was when I lived there, and it still pretty much is today, a very segregated city. The races don't mix, not really. White folks stay with white folks, Black folks stay with Black folks, and the few Spanish-speaking people, we call them all Mexicans because we didn't know any better. They did their own thing. I don't know what they did. I couldn't understand what they were saying. Well, the Civil Rights Act opened up a lot of opportunities for young Black kids to join programs on the other side of town that white kids had all along. So at 9 or 10 years old, my mother would put me in a van with 4 or 5 other little Black kids at the Herbert Hoover Boys Club to go to a program on the literal other side of the tracks. And there, I got to experience white culture. I learned to ice skate. Yeah, brother played hockey. I learned to crew. We played golf even before Tiger Woods. Water polo, all of, white people sports. I formed friendships with the white kids. I'd often get invited to their homes. I got to know them. I got to peek and sometimes step inside their inner circles. And so with my feet firmly planted in the Black culture of my neighborhood, I also felt completely comfortable in the so-called white culture. I learned to navigate both. What a blessing. I know it now, and I knew it then, but I didn't know what to say about it. Not long ago, I was watching the excellent documentary, I Am Not Your Negro, about James Baldwin. He was talking about how his young white elementary school teacher would take him and a few of his classmates to Lower Manhattan and Brooklyn and Long Island and expose him to galas and art galleries and theater and opera, a world ordinarily reserved for white people. I saw Baldwin's experience was very much like mine. We both grew up in both worlds. When he told the story, he had run away to Paris to escape the hatred and strife of being Black in the United States, and was watching his friends and colleagues on the television. He was watching them on the front lines of the civil rights movement, and he knew he had to go back. He knew he had a role. He knew he had to join the fight. But at first, he wasn't sure how. He didn't know what he could contribute. But then he figured it out. See, he had a unique gift to offer the movement. He said, because of my upbringing, I never learned to hate white people. He understood them. And just as important, he was able to make them understand him. So in the fight between us and them, he saw the possibility that we could all be us. A racist post on social media by a white man got called out and went viral. Well, it turned out to be written by one of the officers at my yacht club. Yeah, brother goes out sailing. I told you. White people sports. I know the dude. I actually like him. More than once, he has gone out of his way to help me. His boat's 2 boats down from mine. I've shared drinks with him on the deck. But for some reason, he decided to post on Facebook using a horrible racial slur, a call for the lynching of protesters in the Black Lives Matter movement. He said their lives don't matter. Well, because of this, I and the 2 other Black members of the club at the time, 300 people, 3 Black, we fixed that since then. We called for his dismissal, or at least his removal from office. Well, a lot of them wanted to brush it off and push it under the rug, said it was just a lapse of judgment. He didn't mean it. It was a joke. Oh, you're just being sensitive. But we insisted that we be heard. So they had a meeting. I couldn't attend, so I sent a letter. In my letter, I basically said this. You know me. All of you know me. I'm Kevin, Rev Kev. I've dined at your table. I've been to some of your houses. I considered many of you my friend. Did you not recognize that I am a supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement? That I'm one of those protesters? So can you really stand there and look me in my face and advocate for my murder? Do you really want to see me lynched? Because that's what that post calls for. Are you saying my life doesn't matter? Do you not see the irony in the fact that a people's cry that you stop the systems and institutions that are killing us solely for the purpose of the color of our skin? Your response to our demand is to threaten to kill us? No. That is not okay with me. And if you know me and love me like you claim to, then it should not be okay with you either. That night, the next day, several members of the club called and said my words swayed their vote. I don't really like it, they said. I think he's a good guy. And this cancel culture, political correctness crap has gotten way out of hand. But now I understand. I get where you're coming from. You're my friend, and I'm sorry. I said, thank you. That's a good start. Many times, I wish I could just be angry and hate. Many times I wish I could just let go and lash out at white people for the pain and suffering and agony they put my people through. But I can't. That's not how I roll. That's not how I was made. That's not who I am. You see, I know you. and I know that you know me. I love you, and I know that deep down inside, you love me. And I'm gonna stay in your face and constantly remind you of that. So maybe I am a white people whisperer. And I know that there are many more of us out there. I'll be honest, it kind of sucks. It's a heavy burden, but I carry it willingly because it's my call, my purpose, one of the reasons I've been placed on this earth. And now I know exactly what to say about it. Hi, my name is Kevin. They call me Rev Kev. Let's be friends. Thank you.
Kev, thanks so much. I think this is an important story, and sometimes it takes years to figure out, yes, this is it. Even when the pandemic started, I had to think, what am I doing? Is my devotion to storytelling what I need to be doing? And I had to answer that. Nobody can answer it for us. So thank you that it came to you, and that you bear that burden. I feel like sharing something else with you, which I will privately. I think Mike Lambert said something in his story about how God showed up in his life. And it is interesting. All these stories show how God shows up in our lives, and with the lessons and the concomitant wisdom that can result from those lessons. I appreciate more than I can say that you were willing to be here, all of you, today. This was a difficult theme. So, okay, well, we're over. I don't know. Oh, does anyone want to comment? I forgot to ask if anyone wants to ask questions, unmute. Or you can just put it, I'd rather you unmute and ask questions if anybody wants to. Okay, people are sending little, I guess that's chats. I don't even know how to do chats yet.
Thank you for saying that, Anne. I don't know, I'm not very good on it either, but what a wonderful batch of stories and moving experiences they shared with us, as always.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. It got to my roots this time. It really got to my roots. So thanks, Jerry, for sharing that.
I think we all should be whisperers. I think that's a responsibility that if we care enough, we should be reaching out to everyone around us and trying to make those connections.
Yeah, I think that that's what humans are programmed to do, to reach out to each other. Yeah, yeah.
If you're looking to find chat, if you can find your toolbar at the bottom of your screen, there's a little button about halfway across. It looks like a little speaking bubble and says chat. And if you click on that, you'll be able to see some of the beautiful messages that have been coming through.
And Erin, do you have anything to say? I'm so glad that you do this for us, with us.
It's absolutely my honor and my pleasure. And I am so lucky to be able to participate in this with all of you. And I want to thank each and every one of the storytellers. You guys make me laugh. You make me tear up. You make me think. And I so appreciate it. So thank you for being with us today. We do, and the next Tales, I think, is August 7th. If I have it right. So wanted to put that out there. And then Poetry by the Sea is at the end of the month on the 29th. So just wanted to get those dates out there to all of you. But as always, we will get the information, and we will get this video up on YouTube as soon as we can. Hopefully in the next week or so, we'll get permission from all of our tellers, and then we will send the link out to all of you. I know for me, I so appreciate going back and hearing the stories again. And I'm blessed a second time, and I hear things differently. And so wanted to let you guys know.
And you were right with the dates. August 7th is the next Tales, and May 29th is the next Poetry by the Sea. So yeah, that's
Pencil us in. You don't want
I
to
think
miss it.
next time you should fly me to Malibu and let me tell my story live.
Oh, definitely.
Anything to get out of Connecticut, I'm up for.
You are welcome down here anytime.
We should all be in Malibu the next time.
oh, you know what?
I agree, Stan.
Oh, people want to go live. I don't know. Okay, if enough of you want to go live, we'll try it at the church. We will try it at the church. Yeah.
And we will continue to, if we do it in person, and we'll talk about that and figure that all out. Oh, I hope Ty is able to come back in. There we go. There he is. But we will also live stream, so we won't lose that for those who aren't able to join us in person, because I know how helpful and beneficial this has been. There has been some silver linings to the past couple of years in terms of pushing us to embrace tech in a different way.
It is. It's very. It's wonderful. There's no replacing that electric energy when we all come together physically, and I missed that through the COVID period. But I am so thankful we've had Zoom. And you're right. There will always be an audience who can't come, and what a wonderful thing to have both. So I appreciate what you're saying.
Well, thanks.
But I miss coming together.
Thanks, Sarah. Maybe we will continue to live stream. We've done one storytelling concert at the church already that was live streamed, actually. So we can do that. And then we'd have to do a fundraiser to fly Rev Kev out.
I can put a couple of dollars on it.
Well, again, I'm looking forward to hearing this again, because what you threw out for us, all of you taken together, I was just enraptured by each one of you. Couldn't take my eyes off your eyes as I was listening. So, okay, you're seeing all your live chat. I think that's all. We can let you all go now, because I know you're up late now, Rev Kev. This is a little later if you're a morning person.
Thank you, storytellers. It was amazing. I don't have words to say.
Thank you.
My heart is so full. I'm Elizabeth. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Liza.
I'm gonna go have a vodka gimlet now.
Oh, what a great idea.
And you sail your yacht to Malibu.
Have three.
I might, if I leave now, I might get there by August.
I don't even know the route you'd take. I can't even think. My geography is kind of flummoxed.
You'd have to go from the Atlantic to the Pacific. So
I'd have to go through the canal.
right.
Yeah.
The Suez Canal. Oh my goodness.
Panama Canal, not Suez.
Oh, where?
Panama Canal.
Yeah.
That would take them around the world.
What is the longest you've sailed, Kev?
Not very far. I've
Okay.
just done coastal stuff.
Okay.
But hopefully in the next couple of years, I'll be living on my boat and island hopping in the Caribbean.
Oh, nice.
Until
nice,
I'm too
nice.
old to hop anymore, and then I'll just park on an island and stay there until they bury me at sea.
Right on.
You'll have to stay in touch with us. I don't think we'll let you get away that easily. We'll let you retire, but we'll not let your stories get away from us.
I'm around.
At any rate, thank
You're
everybody.
muted, Roxanne.
Oh, Roxanne, did you have something?
I see
You're
her
muted,
rotating.
Roxanne.
Okay, thank
There
you,
you
Rev
go.
Kev. Thank you, Rev Kev. This is my first time seeing you. I enjoyed your story and everybody today. Thank you so much. And when you
Likewise.
get on that boat in wherever, the Caribbean or wherever, y'all take up a fundraiser for me to get to that boat to Rev Kev. I want to see the White Whisperer in person.
I'll have some mangoes waiting for you.
And you'll need some white people on the boat. So say,
You can whisper for me anytime.
I'm gonna have to get a bigger boat.
All
And
right.
All right, guys.
I do want
Thank
to
you.
say a thank you to Anne for organizing
Oh,
this,
yes.
pulling us all together.
Bravo, bravo, Ann.
Bravo, Anne. Bravo, Anne.
Love
Thank you so
you.
much.
Love you. Love you, Aaron. Love you, tellers. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, and we will see you all soon.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you, Aaron.
Bye.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, everybody. Bye.